Welcome to The Teacher's Story, a podcast dedicated to amplifying the voices of educators and advocates in the field of education. Here, we celebrate those who champion our children's potential and seek innovative approaches to nurture their brilliance. Join us as we share candid stories, explore impactful ideas, and showcase effective educational programs. This podcast stands for transparency, authenticity, and innovation, driven by the belief that we can revolutionize the education system to ensure every individual thrives. Together, let's redefine education as a pathway to human flourishing. Hi, everyone. This is a diary entry episode. I haven't done one in a couple seasons, and I'm actually going to end this season 4 with this type of episode. First, I'm going to start with thanking my guests from season 4 and telling you a little bit about the theme and what emerged in this season. And then I'm going to give you a life update. So please hold on after the thank yous, because I have a lot to share about what's going on behind the scenes in my life and big transformations, and also give you a little bit of an idea of what is going to be going on with this podcast in the future. As I take my normal summer break, here I am recording on June 8th, and this is going to air June 9th, and I'm about to go on a big trip, and I'll be very busy this summer, but I will give a little bit of information about the future of the podcast. So please hold on. So season 4 was quite special. It was a ride, if you will. So many amazing guests. I would say the main theme was innovation, but also with that expansion and really thinking about the type of guests I want to have on this podcast, and also how we're actually doing education in a new way. So instead of just talking about ideas, that is at the end of each episode and my final question, we're really bringing on guests that are doing that, either as entrepreneurs, CEOs of schools, online schools, and really thinking outside the box. So a lot of just like thought leaders that are in the education world, and many not even, started off in education, but now are gravitating towards it because they really care about the system. So it's a quick thank you. I had 22 guests, 22 featured episodes with guests. Some of the episodes had 2 guests on. So I'm just going to run through and do a quick thank you and a little overview. So we started off in January with Katarina and Anne Marie, and they linked up after I had Katarina on my podcast, and then I had Anne Marie on later on too. And then they hooked up, and then they came on, and we had a lovely conversation about all that they're doing in education. Emily Gawne, who's in Canada and has her own online school program. Helene Beck, who is also a podcaster coming from the heart. And that was a very love-filled conversation. Ola Elkhatib, who is a teacher in Dubai, and we have stayed very connected, and she is one of my biggest cheerleaders. Schutt, who is a former educator, so we talked all about transitioning out of the classroom and doing work now as a career coach and helping other teachers transition. Stella Yann, who is a big, expansive thinker, and she's been on the other podcast that I do with my friend Jess Maidenford, the intuitive teacher, and I've been on her podcast as well. Fardeen Blaq, who is a young activist out of Kenya and just shaking up the education world with young people. Love it. I had the CEO of the School of Humanity. It's an online global school, Raya Bidshahri, and very expansive conversation all about how their school is growing and kind of the online school space. Dr. Bill Coplin, who is a professor at Syracuse University and an author of hundreds of books and really well known in the education community regionally and nationally. Josh Reppun, who is another podcaster out of Hawaii, and we had that great Hawaii connection, and he's all about also bringing on guests on his show, What School Can Be, to look at the innovation in the education market. Matthew Kilkenny, my good friend from Ireland, talking all about AI education. Pablo Munoz, who is a former superintendent in New Jersey and also is an author and talks all about leading and leading with love. And he's also now in education and consulting work. Anshar Seraphim, who is a thought leader, and he also helped to write and craft the education white paper of the Octopus movement, which I joined recently this spring. Haven't been as active as I wanted to since it's been a very hectic spring into summer, but it's a group that I would love to continue to be a big part of. Then Jerry Mintz and Dr. Peter Berg of the Arrow organization, and I went to the Arrow and presented at their conference last June. They're having their conference again in Minnesota this June. Matthew Kincaid, who is an author and talks all about how we can promote anti-racism curriculum and education and having those big conversations. John Ranford, who is a thought leader all about systems thinking and really bringing that to education, a very, very big voice on LinkedIn and around the world. Michelle Howe, who talks all about empathy in education and lifting up empaths, which is something I'm very much aligned with. Christine Jones and Kristen Norre, who are good friends of mine, also in the More Joy community with Cindy Cohen, and they are both authors together with Bridging the Gap Between School and Home. And they have a program that's coming out of that book, and it was lovely to have them on to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. Arsho Calaglian, who's out of Australia and also focuses on teen relationships and building those stronger bonds between teenagers and also with their parents and with teachers. Tamara Miller Davis, she is an author as well, and she is someone who focuses on digital wellness, and her book, which is a fictional book, is really, despite the buzz, as the name of her book, is all about how we can work with our kids and teens with digital wellness. Krista Baylor, who's out of Canada, and she has her own program called Kind Spirit Kids, where she focuses on EQ, SEL, really wellness. It's a program that's paired with school, so it's outside of school. And I love what she's doing and look forward to staying connected with her. And last but not least, Jennifer Johnson and Jan Frolick out of Canada as well. A lot of Canadians on the show this season. And they are the co-founders of Captains and Poets, which I was featured in their Bright Light series. So thank you to all my guests. You are so wonderful, beautiful people. This was such an expansive season, and I couldn't have done it with all of you. And I'm just really, really excited to see where this goes in the future. So a little bit about where I'm at now and kind of the future of the podcast. So I recently, this past spring, resigned from my current role in a brick and mortar private school in New Jersey. And it was because I was ready for a pivot. And I thought my pivot would be online education. I've had CEOs on my show. I've been thinking about that space. But it didn't work out that way. And so I am now in a period of transition myself, still wanting to stay in the education community, but do something on a bigger scale. So I'm looking at professional development, education and consulting, and I really would like to long-term help to shift the system and bring really great programs into schools that focus on life skills, SEL, wellness, consciousness, really looking at bringing that to the forefront and prioritizing those types of skills more so than just academic subjects. And it's something that I've talked about on the show with many of my guests. It's something I wrote about in my book, The Guided Teacher. And now it's time for me to really pivot and dive into that work, as part of my career path. So I will probably send out a video, not as part of like the teacher story, like episode, but maybe later this summer with an update. So fingers crossed, all goes well, and I see where I land by the time it's middle of the summer, end of the summer, and that's my goal. With that, I'm taking a break from the podcast, a normal summer break like I did last summer. And normally I would start up mid-August, but being in this kind of flux transition, don't know what's on the horizon. I'm just taking a leap of faith out there in the universe and seeing, where things go. I'm planning on taking a pause on the podcast until 2025. So I will send out some previews through the fall and into winter to let you know how I'm rebranding this podcast. I have some ideas. I don't want to share all of that right now because it's in the works. This podcast will still live. I will still be your host. I will still have guests on, but I'm thinking more expansively than just focusing on the teacher story or just education, but really how we can transform, systems and the world, and bringing on people who have all kinds of ideas for how we want to shape humanity. So thinking a little bit broader. So there will be a rebranding, and there will be kind of this new transition of the Teacher Story podcast. But my podcast will stay up on all the platforms. So on Spotify, Apple Podcast, my host platform, rss.com, and also on YouTube. And I plan on using my YouTube as well, maybe starting like an additional like channel from the Teacher Story with a series of truths and things that I want to talk about. So there'll be some expansion in the YouTube world as well, with the content that I want to create. So be on the lookout for that. So all of that is still going to be up, and you can listen to any of the episodes and watch any of the videos on YouTube anytime. I may just put stuff out there on social media if something comes to mind that resonates with an episode that I've had before, and say, hey, this is something that I've been doing or talking about. It reminds me of this episode. Go and listen to it. So I'm still going to be very vocal in that way. There just won't be a new season with new episodes and new guests for some time until 2025. So if you see it as a pause, no, it's not going away, but it is on a break, as I transition and pivot into a new role and into a new chapter of my life. And what I want to leave you with this message of this diary entry to end season 4 of the Teacher Story is take the leap of faith. Believe in you. Believe in your soul and your spirit, because you can do anything you want at any age. I'm about to be 42 years old. You know, I've taught in a traditional classroom setting for 20 years, and it just felt like time. And when your heart is telling you something, listen to it. Listen to it. And still use your head, right? You want to be able to like really have discernment and think about things, but go for it. Life is short. We never know when it's our last day. And we really want to live like life to the fullest. So go for it and take a leap of faith. So 2024 is a leap year. And in this leap year, I took a leap of faith, and I continue to do that throughout this year and into my future. And I share that with all of you to do the same. So thank you so much again for joining me on the Teacher Story podcast for season 4. And be on the lookout for some previews and updates as we go through the rest of 2024, and how this podcast will be rebranded and how I will be kicking that off in January 2025. So thank you, everyone. Love you all. Sending you much love and blessings. Have a wonderful summer. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, a wonderful winter season. And I will see you all soon. Bye. Thank you for tuning into the Teacher Story. Your support fuels my mission to shape a brighter future for our children. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a review. You can also support me by donating to my Buy Me a Coffee fund, linked in the show notes. Don't forget to explore my guests' work and show them your support. Together, we can make a difference in education. We do this in community. We rise together.